Hello, Hilary. Welcome back to the She Leads Me podcast.
Oh, thank you, Heather. I love your show. I love your people. It's so great to be here.
It's so great to have you. I'm so excited to talk with you again. Last time we had you on the show, it was such a great interview. I loved getting to know you. And then right afterwards was like, oh my gosh, like we would love for you to come speak to our people like at our Seattle event. And so then you did, and you came, and everybody that was there loved you. And I know it has loved connecting with you since then. You just bring so much amazing just value and insights just in the female perspective, also in the money perspective. You are just so amazing. So I'm really glad that we're here today. So let's dive in with, for those that haven't listened to your previous podcast episode or aren't familiar with who you are, why don't you tell our listeners a bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, you bet. So I have been in the financial planning, comprehensive wealth planning space for about 21 years. My first year in the business was 1999. So I'm a certified financial planner. I run a registered investment advisory firm. Right now, we are all women owned and operated. And
Amazing.
The business earns over 7 figures a year. So, but it hasn't been easy for me. It wasn't always this way. So many years ago, I found myself all the while earning a decent income. But even if I earned $100,000, it seemed like I would spend 125, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I got myself into a pretty massive amount of debt. And I actually, that sort of came to a head when I found myself unable to pay the mortgage on my condo. And I was massively over leveraged. And I was someone who had financial emergencies. My parents would have to bail me out of things. And it all came to a crisis when I pulled my leased BMW into the gas station and I couldn't buy a tank of gas. So to make a long story short, I decided, okay, so I have a degree in economics. I'm obviously great at math. This is not a numbers problem. It must be a psychology problem. So I went to work figuring out what the neuropsychologists and money behavior experts already know about the difference between people who want financial success and attain it and people who never do. And I think, if you, Heather, but those of you listening, if you think about the people you know and their level of financial success, I think it's intuitive to you if I say it's not necessarily intelligence or book smarts or even work ethic that is an obvious precursor to wealth. There are some people who just seem to make a ton of money. They seem to always have a ton of money, right? And there's reasoning for that. Certainly there are habits that are foundational to wealth success, but for myself, what I saw was that I had a strongly held belief that there's never enough money. And I was able to unravel that belief by engaging the principles of what's called neuroplasticity, which is just the science of the changing of the brain, the rewiring of the brain. And, if you think about it, I'm sure there's beliefs or thoughts that you had 10, 20 years ago that you no longer have. And that's an example of neuroplasticity. So it's not rocket science, but sometimes it's hard to implement in an area of life that's really important to you. Like for many of us, we think we overeat. For myself, sometimes I overeat, right? And so that I could rewire those thoughts. And what I did was learn how to rewire thoughts in the area of money. And along the way, I decided, well, I'm going to give this away. I don't see anyone giving this away in a replicable way. And so that's really what I've spent the last 10 years doing. And so just so you understand that I have fully recovered from the financial failures of the past, I at one point had, I was about $500,000 in debt. And there was a mortgage included in that, but it was pretty scary. At this point, I've rebuilt the retirement accounts. I shared with you that my business makes $1 million a year. My husband and I own a $2 million house in San Jose, California, which is like an average house in San Jose, but it is still $2 million. Given the balance of our other investment accounts, we're definitely financially independent. Okay. So I've sort of proved that I've figured out the secrets to not just revenue creation, but wealth building, because you have to capture that money for yourself and build it. And I'm really passionate about giving it away, especially to women. I work with women and men, but I am just especially heart-centered about empowering women.
Yeah. So you've rebuilt and obviously are in like a great place, which is very helpful to figure out that mindset side, especially when things beyond our control hit. Like the recession, back a few years ago, or like today, the pandemic with coronavirus and the financial impact that has, doing that work kind of helps set up your foundation a lot more strong so that you can bounce back or go with the flow, as you will, right? Let's talk a little bit about how important that is in the changing times.
Yes. Let me say the last financial crisis really took me out. So Warren Buffett had a saying, when the tide goes out, you find out who's swimming with no shorts. I was definitely swimming with no shorts. Okay. And then conversely, I'm proud to say that in March of this year, the stock market lost 35%. A lot of people lost a lot of income. And while I did lose income, my husband and I keep our spending so low relative to income and surround ourselves with cash that not only am I doing better than ever before, but also my full-time employees. I have 3 full-time employees, 3 part-time employees. So I have a team of 7 or 8 people working for me right now. And I was able to tell them, your jobs are secure. You don't need to worry. I mean, and the thing about surrounding yourself with cash and doing the preparatory work before times are bad is that it's never sexy. It's never awesome to say, okay, I really need a new car or a new mattress, or I really would like to take a break and go on a nice vacation. But instead, I'm going to save this. I'm going to put this in a curveball account for when life throws me a curveball. That can feel like doing without or tightening the belt, but then when you need it, it's too late to do it, right? Because if you look around and income is down and the business, you don't know where customers are going to come from, you need that cash to live life. So it's doing that financial self-care that is really, I think, a truly generous act to the self, and especially to the family and people that are counting on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you call it a curveball account. We talked about that at the Seattle event, and I love just even the reframing of, like, instead of emergency, right? Like just curveball, like it's just such a, to me, is like, oh yeah, like that's going to happen. It doesn't have to always be like do or die, but the curveball aspect is awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things we're discovering, now in the pandemic, the media is telling us that American savings rate has gone from 3% to 20%, and it's because people can't travel or do anything, right? So a lot of people think they a lot of people think they have an earning problem, but really, for most of us, we just have a spending problem. We just spend too much money.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about the process. Somebody comes to you, they're hearing this information, they're like, yeah, that's totally right. It is a, big difference between under earning and overspending. So where do you get started with people? Where do you kind of like dive in on the ground level to kind of like set the mindset for what you guys are about to do?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We always start with mindset. So if you are having financial struggles, I say it's a function of something you say or believe about money. Okay. And so after I sort of looked back at my financial progress and said, okay, so how can I systematize this? What did I actually do? I saw that the first thing I did was I decided I was just going to do everything differently, that I was going to attain financial freedom and financial success, and that I was willing to unravel any behavior or pattern or thought or belief that I had that was keeping me in that really, really destructive financial place. So the first step is really to decide that you're going to take new actions, try new things, invest in new opportunities. You're going to look to new thought leaders. You're just going to figure it out. And for most people, they'll say they've decided, but those destructive habits can still continue. So after that, we look at really, and one of the most profound things you can do with your money is keep a money conversation log. So for 30 days, write down everything you say or do the actions that you take about money. So for example, we have a culture where money is looked at as a private thing. Your balances, your income, people say it's personal if it's not your business. Okay, except for dialogue is what separates us from the apes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what, right? I mean, how Heather, would you and I have even shown up on the Zoom call at the same time if we couldn't dialogue? It's what allows us as humans to cooperate and coordinate and get things done. So I say that having money be private really just hurts us. And probably for the most part, you talk to your partner about money. You maybe talk to your team a little bit about money. Occasionally you talk to your customers about money. You tell them how much something costs. But for the most part, you probably talk to yourself about money, right? So
Right.
just really be insightful about those things. And, maybe you think in pictures about money. And that's okay too. Maybe when you think about spending money, you feel good or bad or virtuous or poor, whatever it is, that's important to know. So keep that money conversation log. And then once we have 30 days of money conversation, then we have some insight. Now we know what's going on in your financial life. And for most people, I can look at those money conversation logs and tell you a lot about your financial past and where you might be limited with money. So, the most popular question I get is, how do I teach my kids about money? Right? And it's like, well, what do you say to your kids about money? Do you say money doesn't grow on trees? Because you're you're imparting that belief on them, right? And so I go right to work and have that be very actionable. For a lot of people, mindsets and beliefs don't feel or seem actionable, but if you consciously alter what you say about money, you can change your entire financial life. Now, because obviously every business contract or agreement that you're a part of right now is a function of something you said about money, right? So you've negotiated your current income. It's like a lagging indicator. Your current income is a function of conversations you've had before today. So if we can alter those conversations going forward, obviously we're going to alter your income, right?
Right.
So that's just a small piece. So that's the kind of uniqueness of starting with money psychology. And then we dig right into planning, because I really want you to have a different financial reality with money at the same time as you're having this conceptual experience around your money psychology. Anyway, I've talked a lot. That's the first
No,
three
that's so
steps.
good. I'm like taking all these notes for myself. I've heard you speak on it so many times. I'm like an avid listener of your podcast, but I'm just like, yeah, notes. Yes, like this is so good. So you do provide, like, obviously you work with people on a couple of different aspects, right? Like you help people with their investments. You have these conversations around like the money, like the psychology of money. And then you have like an on-demand training, a free training that you also provide to just give this information to people in addition to what you speak about on your podcast as well. Talk to us a little bit about that training.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in empowering business owners to extract revenue from their business and to keep that revenue as personal income and also personal wealth. I see way too many business owners working their tails off, frankly, being overworked and underpaid because they're either afraid to pay themselves or they pay themselves what's left over. And they feel like there's a push-pull between taking revenue as personal income and investing it back in the business. There's this obligation to try to grow the business more. And, I think that revenue is the vanity metric, but you have to have profit to be sane. So I put together a training called 7 Ways Business Owners Can Transform Revenues into Personal Wealth. And those 7 ways are basically, I go through the 3 most common money mistakes I see business owners make. And then I talk about the 3 most profitable habits that successful business owners have. And then I invite you to make a really profound commitment that you're going to move forward and adopt what you've learned and take action, because money is all about action. Money exists in the real and tangible world, and you have to take physical actions with it. And conversations, by the way, are physical actions. So we have, so you can, I say, no matter what your history with money has been, no matter what you've achieved or have now, that you can totally rewrite that narrative. And it just takes being willing to look in places where most of society isn't looking. Most people
Mm-hmm.
aren't talking about their money psychology like it matters, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. I love that so much. And like in the stuff that we do as She Leads Me, like we do want to normalize this conversation more, and we bring it into like our workshops and stuff because it is so important, and we want to empower and equip these women to be able to go do what they're setting out to do successfully. And if they don't have all the tools, then they're not going to be able to do that to, the level that they could do it to. And so it's just, I'm so glad that you have all of this set up and that this is like your mission. It's just so important out there. And I think it's the best.
well, I think wealth building is the last feminist frontier. I mean, aren't we taking strides in every other area of life, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it is challenging. I mean, unless you have already developed that mindset, how we were raised doesn't teach us how to work and then also build wealth, right? That conversation doesn't happen very often, or how we build businesses while also building like true wealth for ourselves. And it's especially, I think, now where people are being rattled and are like, what does the future of my business look like? How much can I control? What steps should I be taking right now to make sure that I am setting myself up, if I didn't do it before, for financial security in the future? What are
Yeah.
conversations happening right now with the women that you work with? Like how has what's the pandemic impacted people's mindsets, people's actions? What's going on?
So I'll talk a little bit about some women who have come through my coaching program in the past. And, as you mentioned, my firm offers financial planning as well as wealth coaching. And so the folks who have come through my program before, one, for example, whom I talk about a lot, when I met her, she was on track to make $400,000 a year and spend $450,000.
Oh.
So every dollar that came in was going right back out. And no matter how much she brought in, she would make more obligations to pay it back out, right? And she's a real estate agent. And to make a long story short, because I do talk about her fully in the training that we're going to be offering to your listeners, so I won't make them listen to the whole story twice, but essentially, since we really got underneath her money psychology, her narrative about herself, who she was being about money, which was that she owed people and that she was a victim, she decided to stop being a victim. And she's made $900,000 a year or more every year since we worked together. And I called her in March just to see how she was doing. And she said, I'm doing better than ever before. I have more listings than I know what to do with. I'm on track to buy my first house in Silicon Valley. She said, she's been growing her net worth at $300,000 a year. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so, and that was definitely not how that was going to go. But so, for example, the difference between women business owners who are building wealth and not building wealth as much as they could be is that like the folks who've come through my program, the questions I get from them are, for example, Hilary, how much can I contribute to my SEP IRA this year? Or how can I get more money into a tax deferred account? Versus in some of the female masterminds I'm in, one in particular I'm thinking of, which shall remain unnamed, the questions are more like, I'm going to run out of money pretty soon. I'm thinking about taking money out of my 401k to pay my employees. And so, it's just, it breaks my heart when I hear people talking like that, because I think it's, I have literally said to people, the purpose of your business is to fund you, is so that you have a good life. Why would you take all your personal wealth and give it back to your business? Your business, I tell the people I coach to think of your business as a super selfish entity. It feeds on your money and your time. And so you have to figure out profitable revenue streams so that it's eating the money that comes in from the profitable revenue streams and not your bank accounts, right? So yes, every business has a ramp up period. Every business needs a capital investment to get started. And, for many of you, that's a credit card or possibly, an old savings account, or maybe you just live on one income in a formerly dual income household. And that's all fine. But after a couple years, if you don't have revenue and profits, we really need to look at the design of your business. Uh, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Sometimes I just talk.
No, absolutely. So when you, the design of their business then, right, like that is something that, do you guys focus on like in the group coaching aspect, or is that, talk to us a little bit about, okay, then let's talk about the group coaching. So we have the on-demand training that you have so graciously provided for free. And then you have your group coaching program. Talk to us a little bit more about that. And like you just said, like helping design people's businesses to serve them.
So one thing I see, for example, is I think a lot of women go into business, and if you're honest, you're just trying to make as much money as you can. You're sort of figuring out what you can sell that people will buy. And there's a little bit of insecurity or maybe even desperation, if that's true for you. I'm not trying to say that that's there for everyone, but there isn't a design for success. So you don't design your calendar so that you have boundaries. You don't design your services so that it's not you providing all the services, because guess what? If it's you providing all the services, you can never take a vacation, right? And especially if you're providing one-on-one services. I mean, a lot of times I hear people say, well, I wanted to stop trading time for dollars. But that's just a phrase that I think too often people say when they haven't designed their business for success. So they start to blame their customers for buying too much of what they're offering. If you have a one-on-one service business, you must charge high prices. There's a reason doctors have high income. It is expensive to get that kind of technical expertise and sit one-on-one with a human being and offer them valuable consultation. That's a really expensive service to provide. Therefore, you have to charge a high price. If you want to charge lower prices, you have to find ways to automate that service, to make it replicable or deliverable by technology, or to hire and train a team so that they're providing that service for you. I'll give you an example. I use a podcast booking service. I just thought of them. And when I first started working with them, they charged me, and the CEO was also delivering the service, right? Well, now her business is so successful and she's grown it so much that I can hardly talk to her. Now, I can still WhatsApp her. She's still a friend, but she's definitely not the one providing the service. I've been through 3 or 4 of her agents at this point, but they provide a consistent service so that my experience is consistent and uniform, right? So you're all familiar with that kind of business, but many of you aren't designing it. And if you're honest with yourself, because you really do have to look, some people are afraid of power. They're afraid to step into powerful positions. They're afraid to hire people. They're afraid to take on the responsibility. They're afraid to grow. They're afraid to be big. So I designed my coaching program to be very comprehensive because I really want to transform people's lives. We're really transforming people's lives. In the first program I ran, 9 women completed the program. This was 2.5 years ago. And we made a $1.5 million difference in their net worth over a 24-month trajectory. It's like a big deal, right? Because if you focus on it, it's just like threading the eye of the needle. You can take strides. So where was I about growing revenue? So, and then, product businesses are all about distribution, and product is tough. You have to sell a lot of product to make a lot of money. Most women I meet are more in service businesses than product businesses, but product is a very unique kind of business because if you get that kind of distribution, if you get really big, you can sell a product business for a ton of money. You really can. Now, and that means you don't have to pay yourself such a high salary while you're running the business. If you can be a serial product business entrepreneur, you can take a medium salary and then you have the eventual sale of the business to profit from. You know, you can make millions of dollars. That can be your biggest payday as a business owner. So understanding, are you going to sell this business? Are you able to sell this business? And, you know, if it doesn't, like, for example, it would be pretty tough for me to sell this business because it depends on myself, my, my sweat equity. And I would have to redesign it so that I'm less important in order to sell it to someone else so that it would still have as much value as it does with me at the helm. And so, but I really encourage people to start with the end in mind. Just really know what is that path you're on as a business owner so that you can, you know, for example, many years ago, I knew, okay, I'm looking at building a personality brand. That means I need to pay myself a lot of money while I'm running it because I'm going to be at the helm for a while, if, you know, assuming it works. And I'm going to have some work to do in order to sell it to someone and have it continue to be profitable. So I need to have, you know, extra capital. I need to have some flexibility there. I can't run at cost. I can't run with low margins. So I've worked margins into all my pricing. And that means, as you've experienced, I'm sure all of you listening, there are people you have to say no to. So you have minimums or standards or boundaries or minimum pricing, minimum engagement. You know, you might have contract cancellation penalties, whatever that is for your business. But so we have to design that all into the process so that you have a plan that actually gets you to financial independence.
Yeah. How long does this program take?
So the framework I created is called the 7 Steps to Wealth. And that by the design of the program, we spend about a month on each step.
Okay.
So it's just under 7 months. And the people in my program get a one-on-one cash flow coach that's assigned to them. They meet with their coach every month. And you will turn over your business and personal finance cash flow management to that person in the beginning. They will slice and dice your numbers and provide you with a personalized plan. And it is literally open up accounts and name it this, and on this day of the month, transfer this much money into that account, right? And so it's very specific because a lot of times I hear from business owners, I just wish someone would tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. I just need to learn about this thing called money. And they try to hire a bookkeeper and a CPA, and those people don't offer consultation in most cases. So this program is designed, yes, in the beginning, we tell you exactly what to do, but then we train you how to tweak the numbers so that you're empowered to have the system grow with you. You know, the system itself scales infinitely. It's simple. It's more like irrigation in your garden than it is like a budget. So I really don't believe in line item organization. I don't believe that you as a business owner or as a person with a life that you love should be sitting and categorizing expenses in QuickBooks. You can pay a bookkeeper to do that. You know, most people spend hours and hours and hours. I have people come into my office and they'll say, we spent all day Sunday putting together this budget and it's so beautiful. And I say, great. Have you ever done anything with it? And they say, no, never. We never looked at it again. Right. And so, I mean, if you're an engineer and budgeting works for you, more power to you. But I use this system I call automation. Again, I compare it to irrigation in your garden, because if you set up that hose or that tubing to bring the water to the potted plants and the areas of your garden where it's needed, and you just fill it with water, then that irrigation system is going to do its job. And that's literally what we do in your bank accounts. We have you, as a nod to the profit first methodology, definitely save for taxes and pay your profit to yourself first, and then set yourself up on a payroll income as the business owner. And if you can, set up a company retirement plan, whether it's just you're saving for or also your employees, but get those systems set up so that you can, when you get, for example, you should not be getting to April 15th and having a problem paying your tax bill. That money all went through your hands, right? And you also shouldn't be thinking about it every month. So just set it up so that 25% of your income, your revenue, goes to a tax account every month. That's just one example of automation or irrigation.
And I love that, because there were a couple of those things that you shared with us that I've heard you talk about over and over again on the podcast. But I normally listen to your podcast when I'm driving, so I don't I'm hearing it. I'm like, oh yeah, like I have to do that thing. And then when I actually was sitting down taking notes, listening to you speak, I actually implemented some automation, and
what
I can't even tell you. So I started paying myself first, because you and I both know, and I've been very open about sharing this with people. Like, I love to give. And so one of my blind spots in business has been the constant, how do I continue to further my mission and purpose through giving and through reinvesting in my business. So I actually do pay myself first. I actually do have automated saving stuff. I was pretty good at transferring money every single month, but in both personal and business, I've set up a couple of different automation things for my partner and I, and for me. And so then this year, in the middle of the pandemic, I actually didn't hire an independent contractor. I actually hired my first employee for She Leads Me. So it's very exciting how doing that work, even though it seems so, it is so simple and small, it was hard to see in that moment the big impacts that it would have on my life today, right? A year and a half later, but it has. So I love it.
The cool thing about automation is the impact that it has over time. So you set it up in the first month, and let's say $1,000 goes to your vacation savings account. Well, okay, then you start working, you get distracted, and you wake up almost a year later and there's $10,000 in that account. And it's like, whoa, I can take my first vacation and not pay for it on debt. Right? Yeah. It's transformative. And I have people email me all the time, and they say, oh my gosh, Hilary, I just paid cash for my first car. Or, we just came back from, well, not recently, but we just came back from a safari.
Yeah.
And I have, I even have a multi-million dollar investment client. So she is a widow and has about $2.5 million. And she emails me all the time and says, I love my automation. She said, I look at those accounts every single day. It's so fun for me to watch the account balances grow. Yeah. It's just, so it definitely works whether you're paying off debt or building wealth.
Yeah. So talk to us a bit about who your program is for. So we've established that it's for business owners. Yes. What types of people, somebody might be listening and thinking well, is this for me? They're talking about some kind of bigger numbers, and do I need to get to a certain level first? Tell us a little bit about who.
Perfect. So when I look out in the financial services industry, seems to me, and you'll probably agree, that for the most part, financial planners are for people who already have the skills of wealth. Right? Because you need to have $500,000 or $1 million to get to talk to a financial advisor. And yes, a lot of what we do in that traditional sort of bread and butter type of relationship is invest people's investment accounts. But how do you get to be someone who has a huge investment account if you're not already that way, or if you weren't born that way? And frankly, most people aren't teaching women how to be that person. So that's what this program is for. And I've talked about women a lot in this conversation. And this year, for the first time, we're offering the program to all genders. So it's for business owners who are running a business. So you have revenue, and so any genders. And this is, if you are sort of banging your head against the wall in the area of money, if you are constantly looking for more and more and more business, and you experience yourself having less and less and less time, if you struggle in the area of money or aren't paying yourself consistently, if your business isn't growing almost every year, or if you think you're overworked and underpaid, these are not intellectual capacity problems. These are not work ethic problems. These are money psychology problems. And when I call these conversations below the line. We get below the line, which means into your money psychology. We can rewrite all those scripts. So I'm really interested in if you aren't yet someone who gets to work with a financial advisor, but you'd like to be, that's who this program is for.
Excellent.
So you don't have to have any size net worth, but it's definitely for people who already are running a business.
Okay, excellent. And so for them to learn more, we should probably have them do the on-demand, like the free training first, right?
So I designed this training so that you will get some insight. If this training resonates with you, it will definitely make a difference for you. Again, we're going to talk about the 3 most common financial mistakes that I see business owners make, and you can stop making today. The 3 most profitable financial habits successful business owners have, and the 1 commitment that you can make that's going to most move you forward right now. And that training is available to you if you go to hilaryhendershott.com/she leads me.
Excellent.
Just for you and your people. Yeah. So that training is
you.
totally free. And then it is a precursor, a preview of the coaching program if you decide you'd like to participate this year.
Excellent. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for spending time with us today again on the podcast. You always bring so much value. Where can people connect with you? You have a podcast, you're online. Tell us where people can go follow you and plug in.
Yep. We have the podcast. There's the training at hilaryhendershott.com/she leads me. And it does come down on October 15th. So the first day of my program is October 16th. So you definitely want to take part in this by the 2nd week of October if you want to time yourself right. If you have room in your podcast lineup, check me out at Profit Boss Radio, and that's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And then everything I do is at hilaryhendershott.com on the web.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being here, Hilary.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just feel like I resonate really well with your audience and you. And so it's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.